Oh, we're walking on. We're going to stay over here. Terribly concerned about that.
Cool. Good evening, everyone. Still have some folks coming in as we go, so as they come, we'll just politely let them come in and make room for them. My name is John Forsett. I'm the fire chief of the city of Manitou Springs. I had an opportunity recently, if you take note of whenever we publish fire restrictions, fire bans, things like that, you'll see I make a comment of how some of those decisions are made through a little group that started out more of a coffee club and turned into the Pikes Peak Regional Wildfire Preparedness Group. It's made up of fire marshal from CSFD and fire chiefs from all around the region, fire marshal from El Paso County. We have folks from the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. We have U.S. Forest Service members. And then our most honorable member is a gentleman from the National Weather Service who provides us with predictive services for this group. Anyway, during one of those meetings with the group, Fire Marshal Brett Lacey explained to me this program that the CSFD community education folks were doing in Colorado Springs to create or to provide education to their citizens. And they're doing about 20 of these throughout their community centers, I think. She'll explain more of that to you, but they've had great success so far with what they've done. And I just felt like this was a really exciting opportunity for all of you, and hopefully you'll share this with others, to learn about wildfire and what you can do and how you can work with us to be more fire adaptive and create a fire adaptive community. You'll also learn things tonight about 911 if you haven't already signed up for getting alerts from peak alerts in case we need to do things like evacuations and put out notices for significant complex incidents. You'll learn about that. So I'm really excited to introduce Sonny Smaldino with Colorado Springs Fire Department Community Educational Program, and we'll all be around. There's some Manitou folks around. Jeremy's here to present some things for Manitou Springs. They've tailored this. It's already, because it's Colorado Springs, fairly regional, but they've tailored some of their program to fit just Manitou. We've put in our data and things, so it's going to be a good night. Anytime you have questions, let us know. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Chief. Like Chief said, I'm Sonny Smaldino, Community Education Outreach Supervisor for Colorado Springs Fire. I brought my whole team tonight. Really excited to have everyone here. We have Angela Bird right here, Ashley Franco, and we have Kathy Hook in the back. We have Courtney and Ben, and they are going to be here with peak alerts and El Paso Teller 911. You'll hear about notifications. And we've got Jeremy from Manitou Fire. So we're really excited to be able to do this and have that collaboration and regionalization of this. Fire safety and wildfire preparedness is, it's region-wide. It doesn't stop right here at the city limits. So it always crosses over. But first, we want to make sure that I turn this on. And there we go. Now we can go. Safety first. If we were the fire marshal's office, we have to do some safety. There's exits right behind you, out here, to there, and behind me as well. If we have an emergency, we'd ask you to please quietly stand up and calmly walk around to the front if we can possibly get that. There are restrooms around the corner to the right if you need anything as well. So the goals tonight is really to get some good information on preparedness. To get signed up for peak alerts, you'll hear that how many times tonight? 20, 30? As many as we can fit it in. All right, so we want to make sure that you get started on your game plan and not have to wait till when the emergency happens to think, oh man, I wish I would have done that, or I should have done that. We really want to take people from that vulnerability stage to empowerment and really feel good about what you have, because when you feel confident in what you got, the stress goes away. I equate it to planning your budget. When you haven't thought about your budget, it's stressful, but as soon as you do it, you're like, oh, that's great, now I don't have to worry about that. That's what we want you guys to think about, is feeling really confident in what your game plan is going to be if something happens. So in the Colorado Springs area, this whole Pikes Peak region, really we have a history of large wildfires. Can anyone tell me when our biggest fires have happened? What month of the year? Any guesses?
June.
I hear a lot of June. It's actually January or December. Those are historically our largest fires as far as acreage. Destruction, clearly Waldo Canyon hit that for our area, but that was in June. But our biggest fires and most common fires are clearly in those winter, and we've seen that Marshall fire was the last day of December of last year. So keep that in mind. We're in a dry arid climate, high altitude, high winds. Those winds were a little bit relentless this spring. We see a lot of what we call mixed severity events. So we have a lot of high frequency events that have a low impact on the community. So that would be, unfortunately, your structure fire. That's a single home fire. It's tragic for that family. It's a high frequency event because it happens a lot, but it's a low impact to the community because it only affected one neighborhood. We have low frequency events, which are these large wildfires or big significant events that have a high impact to the community. And it's really hard to teach in our profession you to be prepared for and know exactly what to do for something that may not happen to you. So practicing and preparing for things that may not ever happen is really hard. So we want you to be prepared for that and know that we do look at all those historical fires. We're going to talk a little bit about lessons learned at the very end, things that we know we don't want to do again. We don't want to repeat history. That's our goal. So how we determine fire danger in the area, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you kind of go off of what our numbers are, the regional fire chiefs do. We collect fuels, and when we talk about fuel tonight, that's going to be anything that can burn and how fast it will burn. But we collect different types of shrubs and tree parts and all the duff and pine needles and things on the north end and south end of town. And that is where we're at. We're up at Mount St. Francis on this northern end, and we're down here by the fires in the south end of town. We do it weekly. So we get live fuel and dead fuel. We take that back, put it in these little metal containers, put those into the special oven that then yields what moisture's in the fuel. So that way we can see how fast are things drying out, have we had recovery. So really what that's telling us is how quick is that going to burn if it catches on fire, and how fast will that spread if all of our said type of vegetation is at a certain moisture level. That helps us determine fire danger level. So it's not just, oh, we feel like it's going to be like this. You're going to hear the weather or the newscasters say, we have critical fire danger today. You don't see the word critical on your wheel, right? They're using that term as a general purpose. I'm okay with the over-exaggeration, I'll be quite honest. But they are servicing an area that is south of Castle Rock to the border east and west. So they kind of have to have a catch-all for what it is. So we look at what is happening directly to our region and what's going on with that. Then we get red flag warnings. Those are familiar from April, right? We had the most red flag warnings than we've ever had in history in the month of April. So that is not determined by the fire department. That is a weather service determination. What we do with that is make decisions based on what the fire danger looks like and red flag warning. Because what we're going to look at is with that red flag is how quickly is something going to spread if we have a fire start, based on what those fuel moistures look like. So we couple all that together. So it's not just arbitrary. Please know that we just don't feel like swinging the dial every day. Trust me, our crews really don't appreciate that. Every morning they have to get up and the oncoming crew has to go change that sign. They look at their emails, see what the danger is, they move the sign. What this also does, though, is it can change some operational functions. So we might mobilize resources a little bit differently, staff or have people on call and ready. So different things happen when we come into that red flag warning thing. And one thing that is really great around here is that all the fire departments work together. We have mutual operating agreements that says if you guys are busy and you're tapped out and they have a big incident happening and something else starts happening, we're right there, and we're grateful that you are right there for us. So that it works both ways. When we have a bad day and all of our stuff is rolling, we call chief and say, help, we need some help. So it's a really good relationship, but this stuff helps those operational decisions, and it helps you understand. What we really want you guys to do is learn a little bit about why we make the decisions we make. It isn't to ruin your party. It isn't to, stop you from cooking and smoking your favorite brisket, but it is based on some process and some real thought to it. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy to talk about your guys' stage 1, stage 2 fire restrictions. It's that way.
All right, so right now in Manitou, we actually are in a stage 1 burn restriction. What that means is that basically we've cut out recreational fires. You're able to have fires inside of your private little built-up fire pit, as well as use your charcoal grills and your propane grills. In addition, we do, during stage 1, we also ask that you smoke outside or within about 15 feet of a receptacle and have a good 10 feet of clearance around you. With that being said, we also change these restrictions, there we go, during red flag warnings, or if the danger actually increases or the humidity starts dropping, the temperature starts going up, we have increased winds and whatnot, in which case our chief may actually put us into stage 2 fire ban. When we actually enter into that, what that means is we don't allow fire pretty much at all, with the exception of gas-fueled appliances. And what I mean by gas-fueled appliances, you can still have your gas grills, you can still have your gas-powered fire pit and whatnot. But we ask that you take some additional precautions, okay? Be able to shut that off pretty easily and basically have a way that if something does get out of control, you can put that fire out and give us a call, obviously. Anytime that there's a red flag warning, these are, as you heard, dictated by the Weather Service. No matter what stage that we are currently in, whether we're in a van, whether we're not, Manitou does enter automatically into stage 2. So every red flag day, we follow stage 2 requirements.
All right. I think that is such a great thing, too, to be able to just pivot and be able to get there, too. But that requires you all to be making sure that you're getting those alerts, getting the notifications, and paying attention. You'll hear that a lot tonight. There's a wildland urban interface. In the Springs, we have about 35,000 rooftops in the wildland urban interface. You guys have about 5,000 or so in there. So that is one of the things that we look at. That's when you're living in the forested areas. We have some pieces of Colorado Springs that actually are in the WUI that aren't up against the mountain. They're in Palmer Park, University Park, things like that. So it is a huge area. It's a huge, vast area that we all have to pay attention to. And a lot of your land, our land, backs to those state and national, forest pieces. So we have to work in tandem with them as well. We have the PUI. The kids love when we say PUI in the school, but that's our prairie urban interface, and that is really a huge risk. It keeps us up at night a bit because that's everything else. That is every side from north and all of east. That's a whole lot more rooftops that I can't count or get numbers on right now because it just keeps growing. And that is that grass fire risk, and that is really, really a serious thing. We have a lot of high congregation homes, which means it's close together. And that's going to be house-to-house fires. We have a lot of risk of that too. Regardless if it's in the WUI or the PUI, we have a lot of issues with that. When you look at Marshall, it was a house-to-house fire. They are not butted up against the mountains like you are. But it did happen, and they lost almost 1,000 houses, but it was house-to-house. So that is coupled with the winds and all of those, all the perfect storm happening, and that's unfortunate. So we take a look at all of the areas and make sure that we're looking at risk around town. So I'm going to introduce Angela Bird. Her and Jeremy are going to talk to you about getting your home ready and what you can do around your home in this area. And I do think Jeremy is up first on this one, and I will give you the clicker. But this is you guys did a great job on this. Kudos to all the smart people for this map. It's pretty awesome.
So within the past couple years, we actually had a huge endeavor in where we actually went out and rated every single residential property within the city of Manitou Springs. We actually took a form and actually took a look at the topography near your home. We took a look at how much vegetation was around, as well as whether or not your home is addressed correctly, or what type of material the building is made out of, whether or not you have wooden decks right up against. And all of this information we actually have on the website. And I strongly encourage you to use this QR code and actually go to this website, look up your address. It could be anywhere from high dangers all the way up to very, very high danger. And the vast majority of Manitou falling into the wildland urban interface is actually in the yellow zone or red, as you can see on that map there. So a lot of the stuff may not be something that you can work on, such as your topography or the vegetation that is off your property. But some of the other stuff that we look at include the vegetation up near your property as well, your addressing, and what materials you actually choose to make your house out of, or when you do remodels. And that type of stuff can actually change your rating on this scale.
Okay, we're going to move on, and I don't think your mic's on yet. You might have to push that bottom one.
I don't know, it's technology.
How about now?
Better?
Here, you can
Awesome.
see it. Okay, so we're going to jump into that booklet that you guys have on your chair.
Oh, there's one more slide for me. I apologize. So
We're not gonna jump into that
Another
booklet.
thing that Manitou Springs offers is we actually will come out to your home and have a one-on-one interaction with the property owner and actually discuss these vegetation concerns and anything else that you might be able to do with your property to help us out. And this is completely free. We do this all year round. All you have to do is give us a call down at the station, and we can set you up, and hopefully we get to you within a week or so, and then we actually type up a little form to send to you that gives you a written record of what we suggested. Again, these are all recommendations. This is all stuff that we just highly encourage you to do. I believe that knocks me out now.
There we go.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to jump into that book. If you turn to the green section of that book, there's going to be a section Ready, Set, and Go. That Ready section is what we're going to talk about right now. And really what that section is about is how to harden your shelter or your home to help prevent wildfires or to help prevent your structure from starting a fire or spreading a fire. So there are plenty of details in there. There are a couple of them that I would like to highlight. It really doesn't matter where you live in the city. If you live in the Wooey, the Pooey, or everywhere in between, there's a couple things that you can do. The first one I would say is rake up your pine needles, and we recommend that you have your grasses, weeds, whatever you have, to be 4 inches or below, 4 inches or below. So that includes pine needles, leaves, any dry vegetation, 4 inches and below. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was your gutters. Gutters are a perfect place for dry vegetation to land and stay in. And then they also are a perfect thing to help introduce fire to your home. So regularly cleaning out those gutters, getting all that dried vegetation out, definitely will help if there is a fire in the area and embers are in the air. Not having that dried material in your gutters will be a benefit to not help that fire be introduced to your home. The other thing I know that we do in the spring is we recommend that when you do renovate your deck, that you use fire or ignition resistance material such as Trex, because those materials actually melt instead of ignite. So those are the two things that no matter where you live in the city, that can help you harden your structure and make your home less fire or more fire resistant. So neighborhood chipping. Jeremy, do you want to talk about this?
Thank you. So, as you guys know, we've had quite a few wind events as well as that snow event recently that knocked a lot of limbs down. Prior to us having this enormous amount of chipping material that we've been trying to help out with, we also were in the process of working on a neighborhood chipping program in order to get out with these wildland assessments, with all this mitigation that we're asking you guys to do in your property. We wanted to help you find a way to get rid of that material. And with that, we actually went and we're doing neighborhood chipping days. Now, we did do the Crystal Hills subdivision, I believe a week or so ago, and we're actually entering into the next subdivision, which is actually further towards the west on the same side of Manitou Ave, and we actually zoned it out. And on our website, we have all these dates put in. And what we basically did is we started in Manitou over in Crystal Hills, and we kind of went into a clockwise direction around the city, and we're finishing up down in the, where all the vias are, okay? Down near Becker's Lane. Now, this is going to be occurring about every 2 weeks, and what we ask you to do is we do have a flyer that's outside, as well as this link on here, which will be linked on our website as well. That gives you an idea of what type of piles we want to see. So when you guys actually get your material together, what we want to do is we want to have about a 5 by 5 by 5 foot pile, no bigger than that. And you can have more than one pile, but no bigger than 5 by 5 by 5 with all the branches facing the same direction. Think of it this way, when we want to grab all that material and throw it inside of the chipper, okay? So that's the way we want to do it. So if you can help us out and make that as easy as we can, we greatly appreciate it. In addition, for those who are unable to make these neighborhood chipping days, we will also be having a community chipper event where you will have to bring the chipping material, the material that needs to be chipped to us at Public Works at 101 Banks Place on July 9th. And we will be accepting material from about 10 o'clock to 3:30 in the afternoon. And we will be there the vast majority of the day taking all material from you guys that you are unable to use on these dates.
Awesome. And just so you know, if you do forget one of those dates or totally miss them altogether, we do have a partnership with Rocky Top, which is off of Circle and I-25. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think what they require is a couple of canned goods, and then you're able. No, sir.
Yeah, they stopped that a couple of years ago.
No more canned goods. $5.
$5 a truckload.
Thank you. Yeah. So $5, and you have the opportunity to get rid of the truckload of materials. The other thing that they take that I know the Springs doesn't take in our chipping program is leaves and pine needles. We will only take tree material, such as twigs, branches, and such. So they do take the pine needles and the leaves.
This is more of me. So in Manitou Springs, as all of you guys know, we have lovely wide boulevards, correct? So no, we have really, really small, narrow streets that go every which way and also have a lot of steep hills. We also have people parking on either side of the road. What a lot of people don't understand is that when we have fire apparatus that are trying to get up to emergencies, whether it is fire, whether it is medical, no matter what it is, we need up to 12 feet of clearance for these apparatus to get by. So what we're asking the community to do is that when you actually are parking on the side of the road, take that extra second and think, am I over far enough to allow a fire truck to get by? Think of it this way, if you're parking further down the street, is your loved ones further down the road? Or is there going to be an event further down that we need to be able to get to? So allowing us to get access to every street in Manitou is a very big priority, and it can happen at any time, day or night. So we just ask you to keep that in mind when you guys are parking. And I believe the next slide's us too. In addition, home addressing. So as I was mentioning earlier in our assessments of all the properties that we did throughout the community, we noticed that there were a lot of addresses or a lot of properties that can use an update on their address. So one of the things we like to look at is contrasting numbers, larger numbers, putting lights on it, making sure you're clearing that overgrown brush that may be obscuring part of your number, and making it as visible as you can from the street. And keep in mind that this has got to be visible to us day or night. So we ask that you head on out and try to take a look at your address and think of it from our point of view and try to get that updated as best you can. It is a very inexpensive fix and one that actually can help us respond to you faster and can potentially reduce that simple step can also potentially reduce some of the danger to your home itself. Okay?
And that's the end of my portion. So we're going to move right into the next section, that orange section, and that's with Kathy Hook.
So really good information provided specifically for Manitou Springs, and then of course this all is area general, some of the things we're talking about. You've already been given some action items, some things to do this weekend. We're going to move into some specific things that you can do with, in terms of preparation for a wildfire before you smell smoke in the air or you see ash in the air. Emergency notifications. This is super important. I'm going to bring up Ben Bills, the Public Information Officer for El Paso County. I would listen up to this. Listen up at this part. You know, we read a lot about communication failures or notifications that that went awry. That's kind of an ever-evolving process, but it's getting better and better, and you definitely want to be signed up to receive alerts, and he's going to talk more about that.
Yeah, I am.
Yes,
I
you
got it
are.
right here. Oh, thank you. Good evening. I'm Ben Bills. I work for the El Paso Teller County 911 Authority. If you haven't heard of our organization, we are responsible for providing equipment and training to all the 911 centers. There's 7 of them in El Paso and Teller County. We're also the administrators of the emergency notification system called Peak Alerts. If there's one thing that you should take away from here and do it while we're standing here. Courtney and I will be here until they throw us out of the building tonight when the nice gentleman that let us in here is ready to go home. But sign up at peakalerts.org, create an account to get those notifications. Our 911 centers will send them for emergencies. Law enforcement activity, I was browsing through them while I was standing in the back. Law enforcement activity, missing persons has been recent, evacuation orders for fire. I did see one in Monument for a bear that decided to go for a walk down the middle of a neighborhood street just to kind of keep people indoors. So we use it just to let you know of an imminent life threat or emergency situation. At peakalerts.org, you can create a profile and get those alerts by phone, text, email, or our app is called Everbridge. So when you send those notifications or when the 911 centers send them, they are targeting specific areas on a map. And only the homes within that area that need that information right now receive the notification. We don't send county or citywide notifications. They're very targeted, specific to the area that needs that information. You can create 5 locations on your profile per account. So register your home address. If you have a work address, you've got kids in school, put all those addresses in your profile so that way if any of those addresses are of interest for an emergency notification that you'll receive those alerts. And then you can put up to 8 points of contact: phone, text, email. So one other thing I mentioned earlier is the Everbridge app. Sometimes there's confusion between Peak Alerts and Everbridge. Same thing. Peak Alerts is a marketing tool. Everbridge is the software that we send them with. If we ever have to change systems, we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So it'll always and forever be Peak Alerts, regardless of the software that works behind the scenes. But right here on the screen is how you get notifications for the address you care about. If you go to the Google Play or what's the Apple Store called? You guys know what I'm talking about. You can download the Everbridge app and it makes your phone a roaming beacon. So if you're registered here in Manitou Springs, but you head into Colorado Springs and there's an incident, then your phone would go off if you have the Everbridge app on your phone logged into your Peak Alerts account. So just a few things to note there. There's a QR code if you want to scan it now. Going once, going twice, brochures outside. A few numbers to add to your cell phone contact list. Over here in Manitou Springs, I would pay close attention probably to El Paso County Sheriff because that would be the agency that would send a notification over here to Manitou Springs. That phone number, 426-2457, it's not their non-emergency number. It's a number we've assigned for emergency notifications. And then the text message will always come from the number 88911. The good thing to know about that number, program it as a contact as Peak Alerts so you know what the number is calling in. If you don't program it and that comes in, most people won't answer phone calls from numbers they don't know. And what they'll do is wait a minute, and then what do? You call it back. So we don't want all those calls going into a 911 center that are already busy generating the response and sending these emergency notifications. So if you do miss it and you call it back, it'll tell you you've received an emergency notification from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, and it'll read the message to you again. A few other things to mention is you guys have an extremely high rate of visitors here. I've been over here on the weekend before over off of Ruxton, and it's all you can do to get your car through that street with everyone crossing the roads up and down the sidewalks, but they don't know to register for Peak Alerts, right? They're visiting your guys' community. So we have to have a plan for that, and that plan is we utilize another system called iPause. iPause allows us to broadcast that same message we send out over Peak Alerts, over TV stations, over radio broadcasts, weather radios, and then a notification called a wireless emergency alert. Has anyone ever received like an Amber Alert to their phone before? Same thing. It'll have that alert tone and the vibration with it, and it'll have a short message about whatever the emergency is we're telling you about. We will only use that system for an imminent life threat like an evacuation order, not a pre-evacuation warning, evacuation order. When it's an imminent life threat, we will utilize this system so we can move as many people as possible, especially your tourists over here, up off of Ruxton, anyone that's up and down who thinks climbing the Manitou Incline is fun, all those people can come on down. So we have a way to reach them too. It's also important to follow official public safety feeds. Look at some websites for social media. Here's a few that you might want to follow, especially the Manitou Springs Fire Department. rpeakalerts.org. You can create that account. We can also generate those same messages. Will get posted to various Facebook and Twitter feeds. So just a few things to consider. Ms. Courtney and I will be here after for questions, or if you want to check your account, see if it's accurate. We can double check your number to make sure if you need to sign up or not. But tell your friends, tell your neighbors. If you have elderly relatives or elderly neighbors, it's my first day up here. Help them sign up. I mean, give them a hand. We also have a phone number on the brochures outside. If somebody doesn't have the technology to sign up, there's a number listed there, 719-785-1971. Call and leave us your information, and we'll build that profile for you. We just want to make sure that you have a plan. Peakalerts.org. Am I to 20 yet? Peakalerts.org, peakalerts.org. Do it today. It takes 3 minutes. And then you'll have some peace of mind in knowing that we'll have an attempt to reach you, or a way to reach you during an emergency.
Thank you. So the next pages in your book, I'm not going to stand here and read verbatim, but these are some action items. Ben Bills has already given you one big action item to do, and that's to get signed up for Peak Alerts. These next things are not something that we're going to do when we're in pre-evac, or certainly not evacuation. These are all things that you need to be thinking about now. Hopefully, you'll never have to use this plan, but it's a really bad time to think when there's an event that is progressing, what am I supposed to do again? So these are things that you can start doing even tonight when you go home after the Avs win the game. You can start some of these tips. First are the 6 Ps. In the little orange box, there is a whole bunch of Ps listed. And I'm not going to read them to you, but I'm going to go through some of them that are important. Pets. We all love our pets. Our pets are part of the family. Perhaps you have pets that don't get along. And so if you normally take your dog one day to the vet and your cat another day to the vet, if you need to evacuate and they're going to be in the same car, that could be a rough ride. So be thinking about carriers and how you're going to do that. There have been some lessons learned from many events in the past. And one of them is that when people have maybe a little bit more time to think about evacuation, they will load up their boats and their RVs, and they'll rent a U-Haul to haul their crap out. We would respectfully ask that you be fair to your community. Choose which car, your one car, you're going to take your family and all of your stuff in, and that's the car you'll take. Because as you know, that's one of the big issues in emergencies is the traffic. So be thinking about that. How are you going to bring your pets? Of course, your people. And when we say people, obviously you're going to bring the people in your home. But what if you have loved ones or family members that don't live with you, don't live near you, and they don't drive? So just thinking about having them know their neighbors, having them know that they would not be able to evacuate. Maybe you have kids or grandkids that babysit. They can babysit, but they're not old enough to evacuate. Making sure that they know this is the neighbor you go to. This is the plan for this. Because you're not going to be able to go in. If it's on an evac, you're not going to be able to go in. So there needs to be some communication and a plan. Papers, phone numbers, important documents. Know where all this stuff is. You don't start looking for your life insurance policies when you smell smoke. That's a little bit late. So kind of be knowing where all of these things are. Prescriptions, eyeglasses, vitamins, irreplaceable memorabilia. Which pictures have to go? You can't take your whole house. So be thinking about that. All of these Ps are only if you're in a potential emergency. If you've gotten that evacuation order, you don't have time for this. You need to go. Even a pre-evac, this should already have been thought out and you are ready to go. Just a little friendly reminder. You do not have to wait until the government tells you to go. You can go on your own beforehand. We like that because that gives you a lot less stress. You're out of the way, and if you're a person that feels like, man, I don't move very fast, I don't like the traffic, please help us all. And especially as Ben has noted and Sunny has talked about, Jeremy, in this community, it fills up fast. Those roads are narrow. So think ahead a little bit about, and maybe nothing will happen. Maybe you'll be back in your home in 2 hours, but maybe you'll be out for 2 days or 2 weeks. So think a little bit ahead. And have a plan on that. How to get your hard drive out, what you're going to need as far as important documents in your home. Be thinking about all of that. Young children, as we talked about, if they're with a babysitter, if they're the ones that are the babysitter, or older adults that maybe are not able to evacuate, maybe they're stuck in their home. Have the neighbors know that that's their situation. In the back, when you walked in, we had some File of Life. Those are more for medical emergencies in your home anytime, not just a wildfire situation, but those are nice, as I'm sure you're all aware. Those go in the refrigerator area. Grab those on your way out, because then you have a nice list of your medications and your health issues and things you might not remember in a stressful situation. Please, please communicate with your family. No surprise to any of us that in emergencies, cell towers have gone down. There has been no cell phone communication in some prior emergencies. So yes, that's great if you can text and call on the phone, but have an alternate plan. If those cell phone towers are down and you're not able to do that, say, you know, Grandma in Kansas is going to be our point of contact. We're going to call her and say where you are or where you are sheltering. Great thing to have a plan with your family. Also, if you have a place to go, be thinking about that. Maybe your only friends live in Manitou. It's a great night tonight to start making some friends in Falcon or in Pueblo, so that when there is an evacuation order or pre-evac, you have some place to go. You can't do that on a dime. You have to kind of be thinking about that and then practicing. Just like we talk about with home safety plans, you need to have a discussion and practice on that. How will you leave? We are asked literally every day, well, what road should I take if there's a fire? Sunny's going to do a really neat example at the end of this, and you know what the answer is? I don't know, because it totally depends on where the fire is and the conditions. So if you always take the same route every time you go to the grocery store, you need to learn some different routes. You need to learn, well, is 30th open or isn't it? You know, sometimes roads open and I don't even know it for months. So be knowing what areas are open, what roads are available, what you can take, and then where you're going to go. Different routes in your community. So those are kind of just some basic long-term things to think about. Sunny's going to hone this down a little bit more specifically to the three shelter-in-place, evac, and pre-evac.
I do, yep,
Great.
I'm ready to roll. All right, so let's talk about the go piece of this book. And this is when something is happening. So you've gone through, you've created your go kit, and I don't think we've mentioned this, but we're super excited to be able to provide one lucky winner with a go kit. And here is a weather radio, first aid kit. It gets you started on some of the things that are on that checklist. So we will announce a winner here at the end, but we're grateful to be able to do that. So now's not the time to get it ready. But what we want to do is kind of give a little bit of foundation on who does what. A big incident is happening. What are the roles and responsibilities? I think there's a lot of misinformation on what the fire department does versus law enforcement versus our streets departments and all of that. So the fire department's job, regardless of agency, we put the fire out. The faster the fire gets put out, the faster you get to go home. In order for us to get apparatus and equipment and things up there, we need the roads cleared out, we need people out of the way so that their lives are not in danger, that we're not adding to the problem as far as having to not put the fire out because we're trying to care for people. So we're trying to ask that help from the community. But the law enforcement, those are the people that do the evacuation. They're the ones that make sure that is decided that we're going to get all these people out. Who decides who gets out is our fire operations incident commanders. They're going to say, we have a fire here and we need access here. In order to be able to bring in all the equipment that we think we need to mitigate this problem, we need this area cleared out. They're going to make the decision of what areas are going to need to be cleared out. That gets communicated to law enforcement. Law enforcement then gets people out. Then when you're out, they protect the neighborhood from crime and any of that, and traffic control as well. So that is one of the things a lot of people think the fire department takes care of all of that. We don't. Then we work with the Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management. They stand up when there's a large incident that happens in the area, and we're able to have them help coordinate some additional resources if we need some stuff from the state, if we need other things coming in. They really are there as a support system to help us with whatever we need in the event something happens. They also help a lot with the recovery part. So if there has been an incident, they're there for that recovery part. If there's funding that needs to be made or emergency declarations, that all kind of handles on this other side, the city, county, state, federal agencies. The communication centers get hammered in the event of a smoke in the air because the 911 centers flood up. No matter what area you're in, people are calling because they see something. They also take those calls, they dispatch things out, they coordinate with our fire crews to make sure that they have what they need, and they also are pulling the trigger when they're told what area needs to evacuate. They're pushing the notifications out. So it's a huge operation that happens in the dispatch center. So that's kind of a little bit about who does what. So when we get everyone together in government and they all agree on something, it's a huge celebration. It doesn't happen very often. So we're taking this as a win for this decade, that all of our government agencies got together and said, yeah, we all can get on board with the same thing. Awesome. All the agencies around the area got together and said, this is what we're going to tell people when we have an emergency. We're going to put people on pre-evacuation warning, not voluntary evacuation. We're going to do evacuation orders, not mandatory evacuation. So there's different terms that we want to make sure you're aware of what that's going to look like moving forward. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Shelter in place as well. So pre-evacuation warning, once you're signed up for Peak Alerts, if you haven't signed up for Peak Alerts, please sleep in. Are we at 16? So Mountain Shadow, this is really what you're going to see. The highlighted areas is neighborhood and incident. So it could say, you know, a neighborhood up here, and then it's going to say said emergency. That could be changed for flooding, hazardous materials, whatever it might be. So that we try and keep things consistent, and those narratives are getting all coordinated as we speak to make sure that everybody's getting the same kind of messaging. So it's quite a process to get scripts changed for dispatch, to get technology to work. So all of that's coming together, and it's a really exciting time to be able to get there. So once you get there, if you get a pre-evacuation warning, now's not the time to, you know, decide I need to go start pillaging through my home and find the best things. Those things should have already kind of been thought through, the things Kathy talked to you about. This is the time to get ready to go. You all live in areas that many of you, I'm sure, have a one-way in, one-way out, or a cul-de-sac. Am I wrong in saying, or it's just tight, congested. This is the time to go. Don't sit around and wait for the order. Go now, because that's going to help alleviate any particular issues. If you've made your new friends and you're playing pickleball and Falcon now, because you've got your new friends out there, go out there and enjoy the day. Go see what's happening on the east side of Colorado Springs. Go up north to Castle Rock. Go shopping at the outlets. Find something to do that isn't here, that you're out of the way, and then you're just paying attention to what those additional orders may be. Feeling empowered because you have your plan, you have your bag, you have your things that you know you're good. That's really a good day to be able to get out early. And if you're inconvenienced for a little while, sorry, but you're safe and you get to go back home. Because the faster we get the fire out, faster you go home. So those are the things we want to make sure. You don't have to wait for those orders to come. When you are put on a pre-evacuation warning, there's a few things that you can do around the house quickly, because you already have your bag ready, right? One of you when you'll be ahead of everybody else. So inside your home, we want to make sure you're pushing away those lightweight curtains, because heat comes up to the house. That's pretty quick to ignite. So all that kind of stuff, pushes that away around the inside of your home, and making sure that you've kind of done everything that you possibly can do. Turn off whatever you can turn off. If you have TVs, if you're cooking something, please turn off your food. When you're leaving your home, that's a good rule of thumb for any day. But just pay attention to what's going on in your house. There's a great checklist in the book on inside your home and outside your home. One of the things people find, and we've heard this time and time again at big events, is they'll lose electricity and they don't know how to get out of their garage. Anyone seen the handle that goes on the garage door? When you have teenagers and you fail as a parent, me, to tell them how to get out of the garage, and then they call freaking out, oh, I'm gonna be late for work. How do I get out of the garage door's not working? What do I do? It's like, pull the handle. Well, where's the handle? You've seen it your whole life. It's right above the roof of your car. Pull the handle. That's gonna release that, and that gives you manual operation. If you didn't know, go practice. If you're unable to get up there, reach, make sure you have a ladder tall enough, step stool tall enough to go grab that, pull that handle, practice it once. See what it does. It's kind of a fun little weekend project you can all do and learn something new at your house. So definitely practice that, because if the power goes out, you may feel trapped. We never want that to happen. Feel like you know what to do to get out of your home in case the power goes out. That's a big deal. Outside your home, we always tell people to please take as much fuel, anything that can burn that's close up to your house, put it out in your yard. It's gonna look ugly, and all your beautiful cushions that you put on your patio furniture that cost more than the chair, we want all that out. You can leave the iron chair, but take the cushion out. That's That's what's gonna catch on fire. Take all those propane tanks, things that are combustible, away from your home and put it in the center of your yard if possible. That's just less things to do. Again, good checklists that are in there for best practices. Not everything will apply to your home, but things to consider. So, if you have an animal, like Kathy said, make sure that you got a game plan for them, because people love their animals more than their humans sometimes. And I guarantee you my father-in-law's a goner if we have a fire, because my mother-in-law will leave with the 4 dogs and not him. So she has a game plan more for her animals than she does her husband, and that's okay. But have your animal emergency kit, medications, things that you don't think about. How are you gonna get them out? What is your plan if you're not home? What are you gonna do with your pets? If you have a lot of pets and you need several trips, start now, okay? If you get an evacuation order, that just amps up the level. That's imminent life threat to the area in which you live, and we need you out so that we don't have any issues there. That means leave now. This isn't the time to go doing all the stuff around your house. Just go. We need you to go. Take your go kit and head on out. If you get that notification and you're at work, you're not at home, you're playing pickleball with your friends in Falcon, do not try and come back in, because we're not going to let you in. And I'm sorry, but we can't do that. We can't put people in harm's way to get their stuff, their things. So this is not the time. Have a plan for your neighbor. If you don't like your next door neighbor, find new neighbors that you do like and that you trust, that could come in your home and grab what you have prepared that you know that you could use for a couple of days. So those are things to pay attention to. Do not go back in, or not try and find new ways in. And remember the 6 Ps. And again, this is the time to go and to pay attention to what's happening. This is the time to be following official public safety information, either on social media, follow them directly, see what's going on at press conferences, whoever is speaking on behalf of Manitou Fire, that's who's going to give you the information and get it from the source. Don't be passing information, because it's just like telephone in 3rd grade. It will change if you start getting it from your friends, that you're not listening directly to what's happening and what you need to do to be more proactive. Take one vehicle. Kathy touched on this. One of the lessons we learned in Waldo was people took everything. And, quite frankly, that's very selfish, because your stuff is just your stuff. And when one family takes an RV and they hook up a trailer to the back of that, and they put their ATVs, and then they have their 3 kids each grab one of their 3 cars, how long is that space on the road that you just took up from 5 or 6 other neighbors that could have just taken 1 car? Extraordinarily selfish. It's just things. Talk to your insurance agent, have a good conversation, make sure you're fully covered for all your toys. But what we don't want is you loading everything up in your RV because it's more convenient and you can fit more crap in there. Take your car. We have 2 grown kids. We have a cat, a dog, and a husband if I want him in there. I will put them all in. I'll tell the kids to dump their dirty clothes into a bag, because I know they've worn them recently. And we're all going in, and we're getting the next door neighbors. They have 2 kids. They just moved in. They can't drive. They're coming into our car too, so we're going to have 6 grown-ups in there and animals, and I don't care. It's going to be uncomfortable and inconvenient. But guess what? I've just made space for all the rest of my neighbors to come out instead of taking the 6 cars that we have at our home. I'm only taking 1. I'm leaving the rest of them. Don't need them, and a few of them I don't want. So that's always a good thing too. But think about that. Think about what the impact you have by taking so many things away. But we did see that by hundreds of different people that were evacuating, taking multiple cars, U-Hauls, whatever they could get to put their things in. When really it just clogged it up by having more drivers out on the road. So when you get the emergency orders, and that comes through on your notification, make sure that you stay informed and do not go back in until it's safe. We've made that mistake a couple times in big events where we've let people come back early and it wasn't safe. There were still smoldering ashes, there were still dangers, but we want to make sure that you're safe and that we're deeming it safe. We're not keeping you out because we want to be mean, we're keeping you out for a purpose, and that's life safety. These firefighters will risk a lot to save a lot, and that is you. But they don't want to have to go in and have to go risk a lot because you chose to go in when it wasn't safe. And they have a perimeter around it, but then they find out that there's people trying to get back in their homes. Now they have to go back into danger to try and save those people. So please don't do that. If you shelter in place, Like Ben had said, there's some shelter-in-place orders that have happened, and that's usually with law enforcement activities. So you're going to get that. They're going to tell you what they want you to do. Again, if there's a fire incident and you can't get out and have to shelter in place, now's not the time to go to your basement like a tornado. It's to pay attention so you can see what's happening outside those windows, so you know if the fire front has passed, and then it's safe to leave. Okay? So those things sound scary, but your homes are built pretty well. It takes them a while to get them moving. Some of them are going to go faster than others, but the more stuff that you've created that nice hardened home and hardened structure, it's going to take a little less time. So we're hoping that if there is any event that has to come through, it passes right on over real fast, and you're able to go when they tell you it's safe to go. Again, get inside quickly, find that safe spot, don't leave till you're told to. And things that we want you to take away is that really, again, we can't stress it enough, it's your responsibility to stay informed. We have provided every possible way to provide information to the community. If you choose not to take us up on that, we can't do much more about it. Please take that opportunity to sign up anyway, get your information how you prefer to do it, because there's always a way that we're going to provide it based on what you prefer to receive your information. Some people say, I hate Twitter. Great, you don't have to do Twitter, I get it. You want to get a phone call, you want to get an email, great, we'll make it happen. But make sure that you're getting the information the way you want it. And then also, make sure that you are finding those bigger areas that you might be directed to and you're familiar with your community. We might ask you to come here to the school because it's the safest place for us to get you for a while until we can get you somewhere else. Because there's a big parking lot, we have a safe, fully inspected fire, resistive type building here at the high school, the schools. They're inspected every year, so we know that they have a higher level of fire safety than most other structures. So this might even be one of the places we say, come here first, and then we might have to go somewhere else. So know that those things will change and evolve. So one thing we know is fires are unpredictable. We can't model anything until we know exactly what's going on. We know that it's variables that are unplanned happen frequently. And so we do our very best to do things. As technology evolves, it helps us a little bit better. We have new tools that work a little faster and things like that, but we do know that they're unpredictable. We played a little exercise, I did a little activity with you all. Ashley asked a few people around here some questions. And these were kind of the questions, and what we did is you created your own model tonight. And so I'm going to read you off what a typical incident would look like with the information you provided us. So this is just one option of what can happen. It's 5 p.m. on Wednesday in April, and a fire started in Manitou Springs at Fields Park. The winds are blowing about 23 miles an hour from the north, and calls for smoke come into the 911 center. The crews are dispatched to a possible grass fire, and upon leaving the station, they see a plume of smoke, and they know right away that they need additional resources. So they start calling in additional resources, and as they're doing that, there's a major wind shift to the west, and speeds increase 20 miles an hour. Say about 40, 45 mile an hour winds that have now completely changed course. The wind shift is growing the fire very quickly, and the incident commander decides he needs to do some evacuations, and then they start the process of evacuation and notification. That's like a 10-minute scenario of how quickly things change. And so when people say, well, where do I go when a fire starts? I don't know. Because it started here and was headed that way, but 10 minutes later it was headed that way. So you need to pay attention, go opposite of where it is. Find two ways, and you all found one way here. I encourage you to find a different way home if possible. Those are ways to get around doing that. But just know that we don't know and we can't advise until we know exactly when, where, and what the conditions are. And you guys get a lot of tourists and lots of different activities, and the wine festival's lovely. And so all those things you have to think about, and there's variables that the fire crews have to put into play to account for, okay, we have like 2,000 more people than normal today than we typically have in town. How are we going to start moving that around? How do we need to phase this through to make sure that the community and our tourists are safe? So there's a lot of variables and things that come into play that we just can't predict until it actually happens. So that's one of the things that we've had a lot of arrows thrown our way. Well, why don't you know what to do and tell me what way to go? This is why. because everything is dependent on time of day, wind conditions, air conditions, heat, cold, what you name it. Every variable comes into play and it becomes something different that we then can start planning off of as soon as it happens. So common wildfire findings across the board, across the nation, really there's been some really significant fires. In the last 10 years outside of Marshall, in the state of Colorado, 1.6 million acres have burned. 120,000 or more people have been evacuated in those 10 years, again, not counting Marshall. 7 people died, and all 7 of those, what they have in common is they chose not to leave. They all knew they had to leave, and they chose not to leave. And that is really unfortunate, and 4 of them happened in El Paso County with Waldo and Black Forest. And so when we look at the numbers, 120,000 people being evacuated and 7 people died, those odds are pretty darn good, and you guys do an excellent job of doing what you need to do when there's an emergency, so good job. If you've ever had to evacuate, kudos to you because you did it. And I just want to reiterate that it is pretty amazing what people will do when they have that sense of urgency and that need for survival, that fight or flee. They'll do what they need to do. The people who chose to stay for different reasons. So that it's unfortunate, but that is what is common within those deaths, those fire deaths. And I'll let you know, nobody died in their car waiting to get out in an evacuation. And that's what people are really concerned about is, I'll be in my car and I'll burn up in my car. No, we haven't had that happening. And so we want to make sure that you continue to take these lessons learned from that. We do know that the communities were vastly underprepared no matter what. The first meetings that we had of these in the springs on the west side, we had 100 to 200 people. We were turning people away because it was hot, dry, and there was smoke in the air. Well, we had a snowstorm in May. We went out a burn ban, and we had 25 people show up to our meeting, the ones that we had in June. Because it's not a problem anymore, because in April, my grass was brown. Well, guess what? It's always brown in April. It's Colorado. We aren't watering our grass yet. It's freezing. So it's brown, it's dry, it's windy. They're worried. As soon as my grass is green, and we had snow, and they're not worried, and I'm not seeing smoke. It's clear as can be. It's beautiful. We don't have a problem. Well, they're very incorrect. We have a problem. We're concerned about it, and guess what? Everything that turns green turns brown. So the more fuel, the more things that are growing, the more fire load we have in our community. So although it's beautiful and great, it makes us a little bit nervous when we sit back and watch the future of what our weather patterns are looking like. But it's unfortunate that our communities feel that it's not a problem because they're not smelling smoke in the air and there aren't giant fires that are happening. That they need to be ready at all times no matter what. Like I said, our biggest fires in the state have been in the winter months, not now. But this is a time people kind of think about that because they can get out and do some mitigation. Public officials have been accused of either overreacting or underreacting. There's several people in this room that have felt that pressure. And it's been unfortunate because we will tell you right now, we will do our very best to always overreact. And I would much rather stand up here every time and have that conversation that I inconvenienced you for 2 weeks and all your food went bad in your freezer. Do you know that my cat died because I wasn't there to feed it? But guess what? I'll say, I'm so happy you're alive. But you can yell at me all you want because we overreacted and we had you at your home for a little too long. I'm sorry. So we're apologizing up front for getting you out of your home for a little too long if that does happen. But what we never want to do is be accused of underreacting and not doing enough to get you out soon enough or stay out long enough. The other lesson learned in Waldo Canyon is that we let people back in because we caved to political pressure. Because all the people wanted back in their home, oh, that fire's headed to Woodland Park. We evacuated them on Saturday, and so Monday evening, lots of discussion with administration and all the policymakers in the town saying, you know what, fire's looking like it's heading toward Woodland Park. Let's let Cedar Heights, let's let Southern Mountain Shadows back in. Okay, so we said you can go back in from like 8 to noon and please get your things because they were mad. They're mad that they've been inconvenienced for a few days. We let them back in. Does anyone know what happened Tuesday afternoon? Kaboom. Mountain Shadows just went up. So we added people back in that were already out. We compounded the problem because we caved to political pressure. and the community pressure saying, I need my stuff. I need this out of my home. We aren't going to do that anymore. Sorry. Again, love to have that argument because you're standing in front of me, and I'll just stand and smile and be grateful that you're alive. That I'm not having to talk to your kids because you passed, because we didn't do enough. I don't want to ever have that conversation. I know none of the leadership ever wants to have that conversation. So we're apologizing up front for overreacting whenever we possibly can. Community participation and prevention is short-lived. Post-Waldo, oh, firefighters are amazing. Everything. A year later, nothing. Right? We're going to show up. We have to do more. We need fire towers. We need this. We need that. Mum's the word for 5 years. We have a few little scares around the state, more panic, and now it goes. We had a very short-lived community engagement this year already. All the people coming in April and May, oh, you have to do something. Now we're green and beautiful, and it's been a little cloudy, so it's not a problem anymore. So this is exactly what we're seeing is this roller coaster. So it's our goal that you all are being proactive and you continue to take this message back to your communities. Stay that course. Stay being mindful of it. It is a year-round issue. It's not a season. It is just a continued issue in the community, and we really hope that you take the message, go to your neighbors, take a couple extra books, drop them off, get as many people as you can engaged in just being prepared and feeling better about, I know what to do with. And I've had to talk with too many people that have lost their homes, and they said, man, I just wish I would have. I could have done that different. One of the gentlemen that I worked with for a long time, worked 30 years at Red Cross, flat out owned it at one of the meetings and said, I have spent my entire life dealing with people in loss, and I do not have myself together, and I don't have my kit, and now I'm going to go home and do it. So I hope that all of you do that, because especially the firefighters in the room, we're our own worst, clients. When's the last time y'all checked your smoke alarms at your house? Challenge you to do that tonight. We are our own worst enemies when we do that. So it applies to everybody across the board. So be prepared, be ready, and we have a lot of time for some questions. So please feel free to ask questions of any of us. And Jeremy's here and Chief's here. So whatever you got, we're willing to take. So please feel free. Anybody have a question, just raise your hand and we'll make sure we take care of that.
You had a very good presentation. One of the things I heard about the Wildfire, 75% of the homes were underinsured.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. So the question was, he had heard that in the Marshall Fire that about 75+% of the homes were underinsured. We found that in Waldo too. We learned more about home insurance than I've ever known in my life. Did you know that your foundations are typically not insured and that concrete will crumble when it gets hot enough? So we had to work with insurance companies to cover those foundations. Meet and get good friends with your insurance agent. If you don't like them, find a new one. Find one in Falcon. Then you have a reason to leave. But make sure that you're having those really good conversations and being a good consumer. You know how much money you pay to your insurance? If you paid that to anything else, wouldn't you want to know exactly what they're going to do if something happened? Be a good consumer of that. Make sure that you feel comfortable with what your limits are and what you're paying out and what you're actually getting in return, because it's really a bad day when it's not all covered. Really a bad day for all the people who rent and they don't have renter's insurance, which is super inexpensive. And they've lost everything and they didn't pay the $15 a month to insure all of their things. We see that every single day. So please make sure that you are insured to your comfort level, your budget, but make sure that you know exactly what is covered, because it is not a good time to do that when your home is on fire and you see it on the news and you're like, oh, better call Bob. And Bob's like, nope, good to hear from you. Haven't talked to you in a couple years. Thanks for paying me. But no, you're not covered for that because we made changes to the policy. Did you not read the 50 million pieces of paper we send you every month? So please take into account those things. But great point. Question back there?
I just have a add-on to that too. We just did ours for our host, and whatever the host is likely to turn for now is not going to accommodate the current rise in material value that's been cost to replace it. So a piece of lumber 2 years ago to build your house was $5, and now it's $25. So you may say, oh, I bought my house house for $500,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is, the cost to rebuild that now is probably double, triple what you bought it for, minus just the equity in the market. I'm just talking raw building materials.
And that's really, yeah,
So
we
that's
just,
really good knowledge base to look into that, because the material cost just to rebuild your house now will be way more expensive than what you probably likely had it insured for or appraised for when you bought it or when you signed that agreement. So.
and is everybody a little bit discouraged when they get their assessor bill and you're like, oh, it only says this, but I know I can sell it for that, but guess what? You can't build it for that. So you really do need to pay attention to what you think your values are, have those good conversations, do your homework. It's your biggest asset, your homework. We do more research on buying a blender than we do on our own home insurance. We're going to read reviews, we're going to do all this stuff on, or buying a new piece of technology. We're going to read more about the TV we're going to buy than we do about our own homeowner's insurance policy. So please be that consumer. It is just important to do. There was a question back here?
If you have a question, I'm just asking you to do it on the mic because we're
Oh yeah, we have our
Facebook Live,
online
and we won't pick it up.
crowd.
So sorry,
Hello.
you have to be mic'd.
So hopefully we can make sure that they're getting all those. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Excuse me.
All right, so the wheel of fire that we see, the little,
Yeah.
the fire wheel, are those updates available online anywhere?
For the city of Colorado Springs, they are on the website, and it would be the same, I believe, here, but I will defer to my partners here.
We actually have a link that actually goes to Colorado Springs. We actually pull all the, when we actually change our signs, we do so
Everybody's in
Colorado
tandem.
Springs
Yeah.
recommendations, just because we want a regional approach to this. And another point on that, if, on the bottom of our signs that we actually have throughout the town, we actually have one over by the pool, we've got one by the Chamber of Commerce, we have one on the west end by the farthest roundabout, and we also have one coming down Washington from the 24 bypass. Underneath those, we also put our stage burn ban.
Awesome, thank you.
Question in the back.
I know, but they won't.
My house backs up to Deer Valley Park, and today I noticed some firemen and a city worker in the back there. Are you planning to do some mitigation in Deer Valley Park?
Let me answer that.
Okay.
I'm actually really excited about that. Just today, in fact, I want you to know globally, we're speaking about you tonight as residents and what you can do to your properties and things like that. As a city, we're doing a ton of stuff globally. We're doing, and when I mean globally, I mean even outside of our city limits. We need to take care of our watershed too. As you know, we're a sole source water supply up on Pikes Peak with Manitou Reservoir. So we need to protect that water supply as well. So we're doing work up there to mitigate on the reservoir and to protect our watershed. In addition to that, Colorado Springs Utilities is doing work up Ruxton Canyon, hopefully getting a grant for that to do good things. And I'm going to get to you because that was really exciting for me. But lots of good things are happening. As you've seen us do before, the trail systems along Inman Trail and things like that. We did a lot of that. But we're partnering up with a lot of folks. We partner with CSU, we partner with U.S. Forest Service, we partner with Colorado Division of
Fire prevention and control.
Fire Prevention and Control, which, to my point, we had a meeting with them today. We were hoping to get a grant to mitigate not only Deer Valley Park, but other areas in town. But that grant, just the other day, we found out we didn't get it. But just that same day, prior to finding out we didn't get that grant, I got a phone call from the battalion chief of the Pikes Peak region for the Tava group. It's a firefighting module of 10 folks. And she called me up and asked me if there was anything that we could do, or they could do, to help us out and mitigate, because she's got 10 folks, and when there's not a fire going on, they need work, and it's a year-round crew. And I said, absolutely I do, because we already had a plan in place for mitigating Deer Valley Nature Park. And in the meeting today, we discussed that, and the good thing about that is when her crew's not busy, they're gonna get in there and they're gonna start pulling that stuff out. And you're gonna start seeing islands of fuels, meaning islands of trees with separation between all that oak brush and then another island and things like that. So really, that's kind of a pilot program with this group that I hope to use year-round, and I'm really excited to have that.
So actually, I have a question for you, Chief. So we have a fire hydrant right next to our house that's in a very inconvenient location. It gets hit probably 3 times a year by tourists driving around. Not too long ago, well, I should say long ago, it was bagged and tagged and I guess inoperable, shut off. Bolts are coming out of it and such. But boy, it's probably been 6 months now. It's been in that state. How long does it take to replace a fire hydrant? And should we be a little concerned about it? Because honestly, we're a little concerned about it.
I guess, yeah. No.
Oh, I should add to that, part of the discussion, I spoke with somebody in the city about it, and part of that discussion was moving it, and he said he's got it on his list, but I lost his name.
Maybe Jeff Jones?
That sounds good, yeah.
Okay, Public Works Director. Yeah, your concern's very valid. One of the things that the city started to do early last year was go through every single fire hydrant we have in town, test it, repair it, whatever it needed. Problem with that is with COVID and being able to find materials, some of those hydrants that are out there, they can't get the parts for. So they are being left bagged. Now, what's important is my folks, whenever they get a fire, structure fire assignment, something like that, the first thing that they have to do before they go out the door is what, Jeremy?
We need to know at least the closest few hydrants and be able to get to them easily.
I ask them that before they leave the door, they know where the first 3 hydrants are nearest to the home.
You know, the first
So-
3 that are working.
Yeah, well, actually we have an app.
Okay.
And when we get an alarm on our app, the app actually shows us the hydrants in the distance from the location of the scene. So in your case, if that were bad, our folks, first thing they're supposed to do is find that first hydrant. If they find that it's bagged, they gotta find the second one, while the first engine's working at your house. So, but please stay on Public Works.
Yeah.
Keep working with the city folks and get that taken care of, especially if it's something that needs to be moved.
Yeah, that's one of those myths. People think that the fire department manages all the fire hydrants. Well, we don't. We're a user of the system, and that's usually your public works utilities departments too. So, but again, critical to know what is and isn't in function. So, go ahead, Matt.
I have a question about the fires that have happened with homeless encampments, and I'm wondering, is the fire department investigating, or I don't know the process to mitigate those circumstances so that the homeless are not building fires on our properties?
Homeless population is very hard to work with. And what I mean by that is it's not that they're difficult to work with, but their encampments and their locations is what makes it difficult. Because their locations are on private property in most cases. They're not on city property. And when they're on private property, you have to have permissions either in advance to allow the police department to enforce trespassing, or we have to still get a hold of those homeowners to be able to go onto their property and have permission to evict them. Because some property owners will just tell us, no, we don't want to bother with it, it's just fine. The other part of that is all the debris maybe that are left in those circumstances are very difficult because that's the property owner's responsibility. In our area, when we look at a lot of the forest land out there, we have the U.S. Forest Service that we can turn to, and we have especially CSU. I don't know if you know how much property around us is owned by CSU. They're very good neighbors, very, very good neighbors, and they get in there and they clean things up quickly. What I can tell you though is whenever we have fires in those areas, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a fire. And we'll go in and put those out if it's applicable to fire restrictions and fire bans for the jurisdiction that they're in. So that to be said, if it's in Manitou and you're having a recreational fire, we don't allow campfires in Manitou. But just outside our borders, you could have a recreational fire that then we go to the top of the incline, believe it or not, a lot. It's kind of our first responsibility. Currently, the U.S. Forest Service has no restrictions at the top of the incline. So it's okay for folks to go up there and camp and have a campfire. And we get a call for that, and we could run up there and say, hi folks, just making sure your fire is okay, and gotta go. We can't do anything about that. So it's dependent upon jurisdiction and regulations at the time.
Good question.
I'm coming. While I'm walking, I'll announce the big winner. The suspense is building. Mr. Andy Wells, you are the winner of the Go Bag tonight.
There we go. And he asked the first question too. Well done.
Thank you.
One thing I do want to show everybody in this bag is this. I'll give this to you, I promise.
Okay.
But I do want to be real quick. This is a weather radio. If you've never seen one, you should get one. You can order them online, they're about $25. But try and find one that has the American Red Cross certified ones. These you wind up, and you hope never go off, but when you're wondering what's squawking at you, it could be this. But this is really one of those things we want everybody to have in case those failures happen in electrical and communications. So that, sir, is your gift tonight.
So our home backs up to Red Rock Canyon. We live in Manitou, but we back up to Red Rock Canyon. And there's a group of dead trees right below our property. Is that something we can report, should report? If so, to who?
Absolutely. So the city, if it's the city open space right over in there, there's an app called GoCo, COS. It's the app that you can literally, you can probably take a picture if you can see them from your home and submit it into that. And if it's a city-owned area, they'll go over. It's kind of like the pothole reporting app that we've had. They've now added it for any of the overgrowth or concerns for mitigation that are on any city-owned property, and that's for if it's owned by a city entity. If it's not, they'll defer it over to the county. So once you report it, it kind of goes through a process, and it's a new process, so we're working to see how that all goes through. So bear with us on that, but definitely please submit that through that app if possible, or through the City of Colorado Springs website. You can look up what the app is, and you can download it straight from there. Any other questions? If you haven't signed up for People Alerts, you need to sign up for People Alerts. This has been Bill and Courtney, and they will definitely help you. Make sure you do check if you didn't check, if you're registered. If you're not registered, sign up for People Alerts. I think I got to 21. We did it. Good. We just want to really reiterate that's a huge takeaway from tonight. We appreciate all of your time. We thank you for being proactive in your community. Please share with your neighbors, and we'll be around for any